Police officers in states which have legalized marijuana. In what ways, positive and or negative, has it affected your job? Washington State officer here. Before it was legal, the drug problems really stemmed from marijuana. Most of it from pills, meth, and heroin. Since the legalization, again, not much has changed. Marijuana DUIs are still very rare too. Simply put, marijuana has never been a problem that needed to be outlawed and so highly frowned upon. Dumb question. How do you test for marijuana when you pull someone over? Mostly senses. Visual. Red eyes, mannerisms, etc. Smell. Marijuana is an obvious scent. Things like that coupled with observed poor driving would lead to probable cause for an arrest. Then it can take a step further, which is a blood draw, which often requires the officer to petition for a warrant first. There is some sort of beat analyzer device too, but I've never seen it used. As a police officer in Mississippi, where it is illegal to possess marijuana, I'm glad to see it's working in states that it is now legal. Marijuana vote coming up in Mississippi, and as a police officer, urge you to sign the petition to get it on the ballot in November and then vote for the legalization of marijuana. Law enforcement spends too much money on fighting marijuana. Fingers crossed for you guys, man. I gotta be honest, I could not have pegged Mississippi as one of the first 10 to legalize. Hell, I don't think I'd have pegged it as the first 49 to legalize. Getting a state in the South to break away from bad publicity would be huge for the rest of the country. I did the design for Alaska's marijuana legalization campaign. Because it succeeded, they no longer had a need for more work. So I guess you could say that marijuana legalization directly led to my partial unemployment. Curse you, job-killing marijuana legalization. Not a police officer, but my best friend in Washington is. She says that it really screwed up police dogs because they are still alert for weed, which screws up probable cause. They now have to replace all the dogs. It honestly hasn't changed much at all. We usually let people step on user amounts of weeds before it was ever legalized. Kids still can't use weed, and for the most part, we are the only people inexperienced enough to get caught in public anyway. We may have a MJ DUI every once in a while, but they're also often intoxicated by alcohol at the same time. We haven't seen any funds running in from the taxes, haven't been able to hire more officers. It's just really business as usual. Is there a breathalyzer for pot? Do you have to take a blood or urine sample to test? I'm curious how an MJ DUI is handled. Not a cop, but I got pulled over with a few friends. For whatever reason, the cops were super sketched out about all of us. After a while, they searched us and the car. I had some weed on me. The cops seemed relieved that's all he found, and they were all super cool after that. Years ago, I was walking down the street in the Bay Area hitting a sneak token, and a cop pulls over and flashes his lights and screams, "Hey, what are you doing?" I went, smoking weed? The cop was like, "Oh, okay, I thought you were smoking crack," and drove off. We don't give out any more warnings or citations to adults, and that has been nice. Still catch kids once in a while and basically treat it like alcohol. Some of the guys have been going for less of the easy catches, going after people with weed, but a lot of us didn't really do that anyway. I guess overall we've had to work a little harder, but it feels like now we're actually going after people who are harming the community, not people with anxiety or stress who use weed as a gateway. Is there a legal limit to which a person can operate a vehicle safely? If so, how is that determined? There is no legal limit because there is no practical way to determine THC levels in the blood. Police now have what is referred to as a DRE, drug recognition expert. These officers can put you through an advanced set of field sobriety tests to determine what drug you may or may not be under the influence of. It's not complicated, but extremely time-consuming. For what it's worth, San Francisco police have rarely arrested anyone for possession of a personal amount. We even have a large smoke out every year on 420 in the largest park in the city, and the cops don't ticket anyone unless they are acting stupid or they are underage. It's been that way for at least 30 years. One of the TV station news departments asked a cop standing around a 420 in the early 80s if it wasn't against the law, and he replied that they treated it like spitting on the sidewalk. Technically illegal, but nothing they were ever going to worry about. Kinda wish they would issue tickets though. Not for marijuana, but rather for the trash conditions that attendees leave behind at the park. Texas cop here. Legal weed here, you can forget it. Texas state legislators have a facade they have to keep up. I can admit that I'd rather deal with a person intoxicated on marijuana or opiates than alcohol any time of the week. That's something I don't understand. All the talk about my rights and freedom, but anti-marijuana, it just feels like cognitive dissonance. Do police officers get drug tested in legal states? Any officer want to chime in? Before anyone downvotes this, understand I'm just answering the question, not taking a position on the issue. From Arizona, legal medical here, we do get drug tested randomly, and we likely get fined if tested positive for THC, even if we had a medical card. Logic being is that weed is still against federal law. I'm sure you are well aware of this, but I had to explain it to a friend the other day. So apparently it isn't common knowledge after all. Even if weed is 100% legal in your state, your employee can still drug test you. Something being legal does not make it immune to employer restriction. My brother is a cop in a major Colorado city. From talking to him, they love it. It has been decriminalized here for years before, so they ignored a lot of small stuff, but now he said he's free to worry about stuff that matters. He said they're seeing a change from drunk drivers to stoned ones though, but as a positive, they've sent them all through training in how to detect that. See a bunch of lying and general bullshit in this thread, so I'll generally sum this up as best I can. 15 years on the job, 4 different agencies, 2 different jurisdictions, states. As of right now, every department I'm aware of in the United States forbids marijuana use to its officers. The reason is still illegal federally, the same reason the military forbids it. If you are a member of a department that allows you to get high and patrol, please give me the contact information as your chief, as I'd love to have a word or 3. When I first go on the war on drugs was intense. Even a dime of weed would get you locked up for quite some time. Personally, I was never really big on the small quantity collars. I just confiscated and have it burned out, not smoked, at a later date. I'd say about 4 or 5 years more people started using the same policy as me, and it wasn't worth the hassle, and the local judge would just throw out the charge anyway, if it was a minimal amount, first-time offense. Nowadays, things are pretty much similar to how they were. It's legal to smoke where I am, but not in public, only in your own home. So we really don't encounter too many idiots running around smoking joints in front of schools like some of those loonies would have you imagine. It's more of John Doe and Mary Doe getting really high and then beating the crap out of one another. Then we respond to the house and the entire house smells like weed and Febreze, and though legal, they are still over paranoid. I wear a white shirt now and don't really run around and do traffic stops as much as I would like to. But my guys encounter their fair share of people driving while impaired, and it's a royal bitch to prove out our district court enjoys throwing these out and laughing like littering charges. Bunch of stoned judges, I say. But I digress. Other than traffic stops, honestly, I don't encounter that many people under the high when I did when it was illegal. I believe this has to do with the fact that we are creatures of habit. And though it's legal, if we've been practicing your hidden ganja ways for the past 20 years, you're likely going to continue on that path. I'm kind of surprised at this. I remember hearing a stat once that an absolutely astounding percentage of domestic violence calls involved alcohol, but I'd always bought that into stereotype that pot mellows you out and makes you less likely to get into violence. I know this isn't scientific, but when you respond to a domestic violence calls, what would you estimate as the difference between alcohol use and pot use amongst the instigators? And, again, I know this isn't scientific. Would you guess that pot was fueling the violence the way alcohol does or can? Or was it more generally a situation where there was someone violent and abusive and sometimes that person got high too? My friend is a police officer and I have ridden in 3 intense situations. While he was not supposed to do that, he trusted me. Police chase, awesome. Apt building collapse, shocking. And pimp getting arrested. Anyways, we were called to a noise complaint at a student apartment complex. My city is more of a college town. The owners were actually outside and we just told them about the complaint. They were chill and said they would lower the volume. Well, as we left, I saw a marijuana baggie near one of the guys. He left and asked my friend if he saw the weed. He did. His response, "They're not hurting anyone, there's no need to figure out whose it is. I'd rather them be home instead of drinking and getting blackout drunk." We live in a commonwealth that recently passed medical marijuana for certain diagnosis. My friend does not smoke weed, if you're wondering. Saw something similar happen on the subway a few years back. Late-ish at night. Anyone on the train at this time is going home for the night. A teenager-looking youth, easy to flex his powers, singing to his phone, playing loud yet intelligible hip-hop, rolls a joint and is reeking of weed. Lo and behold, an officer gets on and gets a look of, oh damn it. Holds the train door open and sternly tells the kid, get out of the car now. The teen looks like he's about to piss himself and sheepishly gets out of the train. However, the officer does not follow him. He just steps back into the train and takes a seat. No one asked why he did that, but I'm willing to bet he was off duty and just didn't want to deal with the kid. He looked so tired.